The Pontiac Bonneville was a full-size automobile built by the Pontiac division of General Motors from 1957 to 2005. It was introduced as a limited production performance convertible during the 1957 model year. The Bonneville, and its platform partner, the Grand Ville, are some of the largest Pontiacs ever built. In station wagon body styles they reached just over 19 feet long, and were also some of the heaviest cars produced at the time. History, early development, 1954–1957. The Bonneville name first appeared in 1954 on a pair of bubble-top GM Motorama concept cars called the Bonneville Special. It entered the production lineup as a high-performance, fuel-injected luxury convertible within the Star Chief line in the 1957 model year and was loaded with every conceivable option as standard equipment with the exception of optional air conditioning and continental kit. This put the Bonneville in a Cadillac-like price range of $5,782, more than double the base price of a Chieftain four-door sedan. A fully equipped Bonneville could cost more than a Cadillac. Only 630 units were produced that first year, making it one of the most collectible Pontiacs of all time. The following year it would become its own separate model, and it would endure until 2005 as the division's top-of-the-line model. The name was taken from the Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah, the site of much early auto racing and most of the world's land speed record runs, which was named in turn after U.S. Army officer Benjamin Bonneville. 1958, Bonneville became a separate model in 1958, available as a two-door hardtop or a convertible. It paced the Indianapolis 500 in its first year. As a separate model, Bonneville had a significantly lower price tag of around $3,000 thanks to the demotion of most of the luxury items found on the 1957 Star Chief body style from standard equipment to the option list. Also a 300-horsepower 370 cubic inches V8 with 4-barrel carburetor and dual exhausts was now standard equipment. The fuel injection system offered with the standard engine on the 1957 Star Chief body style was now listed as an extra cost option, but very few 1958 Bonnevilles were so equipped due to a towering price tag of over $500 USD, which was not considered a very good value considering that for less than $100 USD, a tri-power option was available with 3 2-barrel carburetors and even more power. The electric clock was standard. 1959–1960, in its third year, the 1959 Bonneville became a full top-line series with the addition of the 4-door hardtop sedan and safari station wagon body styles. The Bonneville played an important part that year in the introduction of two of Pontiac's greatest marketing inspirations, the split grille and the wide-track slogan. The latter was not just ad-copied either, as Pontiac pushed its wheels further out toward the fenders than anyone else and created what were considered to be the best cornering full-size cars in the industry. Both the grille design and the wide-track phrase remained part of Pontiac's image up to its termination. A safety track differential, used to minimize wheel spin, was an option beginning in 1959. 1961–1964. The Bonneville remained as Pontiac's costliest and most luxurious model throughout the 1960s and was instrumental in pushing Pontiac to third place in sales from 1962 to 1970. The distinctive protruding grille made its appearance on all Pontiac products during the early 1960s, and was a modern revival of a similar appearance on Pontiac products during the 1930s and early 1940s, as demonstrated on the Pontiac Torpedo. The Bonneville differed from its lesser Catalina and Star Chief counterparts by featuring more luxurious interior trim with upgraded cloth and more oxide vinyl or expanded more oxide upholstery in sedans and coupes, expanded more oxide in safari wagons or genuine leather seating in convertibles. Bonnevilles were also built on a longer wheelbase version of GM's B-body. Also found in the Bonneville were instrument panels and door panels with walnut veneer trim, carpeted lower door panels, grab bar on passenger side of dash and courtesy lights and rear armrest. Beginning in 1964, a Bonneville Brougham option package was available that included an even more luxurious interior trim level with front and rear seats featuring center armrests, upgraded door panels and a standard Cordova roof with Brougham nameplates. The two-door hardtop was marketed as the Sports Coupe. The four-door pillarless models were called Vistas. Bonneville models were standard equipped with hydromatic or turbo-hydromatic automatic transmissions. Other options included power steering and power brakes as well as air conditioning. Other popular options included power windows, power seats, radio, cruise control, and 8-lug aluminum wheels that included integral brake drums for improved stopping power. The Bonneville also had more powerful standard V8 engines than other full-sized Pontiacs, including the 389 Acclaim or 400 Acclaim V8s with 4-barrel carburetors depending on year, with many optional V8 offerings available including tri-power options on both the 389 Acclaim and 421 Acclaim V8s that offered up to 376 HP through 1966. For 1962, Pontiac also offered the 421 Acclaim Super Duty with two 4-barrel carburetors, rated at 405 HP, as a $2,250 option. 1965 to 1970. A General Motors corporate edict that took effect with the 1967 model year led Pontiac to discontinue the tri-power engine options on all of its cars. That year also brought a larger 400 Acclaim V8 as the standard engine for Bonneville and other full-sized Pontiacs to replace the previous 389, while the 421 Acclaim V8 was replaced by a new 428 Acclaim engine that offered as much as 390 horsepower. Also beginning in 1967, carburation was changed. The previous standard 600 CFM Carter square-bore 4-barrel and optional tri-power was replaced with the new Quadrajet spread-bore carburetor delivering 800 CFM, equivalent to the previous 1966 tri-power setup. For 1969, a 360 HP 428 became the standard Bonneville engine, which in turn was replaced for 1970 by an even larger 455 Acclaim V8 rated at 370 HP. The 1965-70 Gramsby platform was the fourth best-selling automobile platform in history after the Volkswagen Beetle, Ford Model T, and the Lada Riva. 1971 Euro 1976, for 1971, the Bonneville was moved down in the model hierarchy, as a new top-line Grand Ville series was introduced. In effect, it replaced the discontinued executive between the lower-priced Catalina and the Grand Ville. The Bonneville was offered in three body styles, a pillared four-door sedan, four-door hardtop sedan and two-door hardtop coupe. The standard engine for 1971-72 was a 455 cubic inch V8 with two-barrel carburetor that was rated at 280 gross horsepower for 1971 and 185 net horsepower for 1972, and optionally available was the four-barrel version of the 455 rated at 325 gross horsepower in 1971 and 250 net horsepower in 1972. The on-paper power ratings reflect the change in power measurement undertaken by the industry for 1972. 1971 was also the first year for Pontiac and other GM divisions to reduce compression ratios on all engines across the board in order to enable use of lower-octane regular leaded, low-lead or unleaded gasoline, thanks to a corporate edict in preparation for the introduction of catalytic converters in 1975 to help meet increasing stringent federal emission requirements. In mid-1971, a turbo-hydromatic transmission, power steering and power front disc brakes became standard equipment on Bonneville and other full-size Pontiacs. From 1973 to 1976, the Bonneville standard engine dropped to a 170 horsepower 400 cubic inch V8. Optionally available was the 455 4-barrel V8 rated at 250 horsepower for 1973-74 and 200 for 1975-76. In 1973, Bonneville was the only full-sized Pontiac to offer a radial-tuned suspension option package which included the steel-belted radial tires along with an upgraded suspension with plier shell shock absorbers and front and rear sway bars. The RTS option was expanded for 1974 to all full-sized Pontiacs, and radial ply tires became standard on all 1975 models, though an upgraded RTS package was still available as an option. 1975 saw the end of the pillarless two-door hardtop model, replaced by a coupe with frameless door glass but with a thick B-pillar and fixed rear opera window. The 1975 model year introduced rectangular headlights. Its frontal appearance was similar to the Cadillac DeVilles and Fleetwoods of the same era. With the demise of the Grand Ville series after 1975, Bonneville once again became the top-line full-sized Pontiac series, with a Bonneville Bro model featuring the luxurious interior appointments from the departed Grand Ville. 1976 was the last year of the Bonneville pillarless four-door hard-top body style. Henceforth, all models would have a thick B-pillar and metal-framed door glass. Sized comparison between 1974 and 1984 full-size Pontiac sedans. 1977 Euro 1981, Bonneville would continue its flagship duties on the downsized big car line that was introduced for 1977. The downsized Bonnevilles were 14 inches shorter in length, over 4 inches narrower and 800 pounds lighter compared to their 1976 counterparts but had increased headroom, rear seat legroom and trunk space with much improved fuel economy, a major selling point in the years following the 1973-74 energy crisis. With the downsized 1977 models, only a pillared four-door sedan and two-door coupe were offered as the hard-top sedans and coupes offered in previous years were discontinued across the board at all GM divisions. The Bonneville also regained the Safari station wagon as part of its model lineup for the first time since 1970 with wood-grained exterior trim and interior appointments shared with Bonneville coupes and sedans. The Safari was available in both 6 and 9-passenger configurations and featured a dual-action tailgate that could be opened to the side as a door or downward as a tailgate, rather than the disappearing clamshell tailgates found in 1971-76 full-sized Pontiac wagons. For 1980, all GMB bodies received revised styling and aerodynamic improvements along with reduced weight. The standard engine for Bonneville was Pontiac's new 301 cubic inch V8 rated at 135 horsepower, and optional engines included a 170 horsepower 350 or 180 horsepower 400 cubic inch V8. A 185 horsepower Oldsmobile 403 cubic inch V8 was also an option. In later years, increasingly stringent fuel economy standards mandated by the corporate average fuel economy regulations would lead to the discontinuation of the larger engines, with a 231 cubic inch Buick V6 becoming the standard engine on Bonneville coupes and sedans for 1980 and 1981, with the only optional V8s offered including 265 and 301 cubic inch Pontiac-built gasoline engines or an Oldsmobile-built 350 SID diesel powerplant. The Bonneville and Catalina, already the smallest selling of GM's B-body line, suffered a serious drop in demand following the economic recession that began in the spring of 1979. With that, GM decided to pull the plug at the end of the 1981 model year. Along with them went the 301 engine, marking the end of Pontiac V8s. From now on, the division would use Chevrolet engines. 1982 Euro 1986, the Bonneville nameplate didn't go anywhere following the discontinuation of full-sized Pontiacs and instead was simply swapped onto the mid-sized Le Mans, which also suffered from poor sales. Thus GM planners reasoned that attaching a more well-known model name to it would spark demand. This model had been produced since 1978 along with its siblings the Chevrolet Malibu, Oldsmobile Cutlass, and Buick Century, and sported a Buick 231 SID V6, Chevrolet 305 SID V8, or Oldsmobile 350 SID diesel V8. The 1982-1986 models were officially known as the Bonneville Model G, although later models were not badged as such. Styling was revised to bear a closer resemblance to the departed B-body Bonneville and coupes were dropped. GM also began marketing the Bonneville in Canada for the first time starting in 1984. As GM's full-size Bonnevilles in Canada were referred to as Parisienne. While the previous Liens, on which the new Bonneville was based, was classified as an A-body, introduction of GM's new front-wheel drive A-bodies in 1982 prompted the change to Model G on these RWD cars. 1983 was the last year for the G-body station wagon as the Pontiac 6000's wagon replaced it. The Bonneville sedan continued in base, limited edition, and Brougham versions through 1986. The 1982 to 1986 Bonnevilles are direct descendants of the 1964 Pontiac Tempest. These 1982 to 1986 Bonnevilles were the smallest and the last of the old breed of Bonnevilles, having rear-wheel drive, full perimeter frame, and old-fashioned American car ride and styling. Some Pontiac customers did not take to the downsize Bonneville as a portion of new car buyers were switching their preferences from compact and mid-sized cars back to full-sized, V8-powered cars thanks to improving gasoline prices. Late in the 1983 model year, Pontiac reintroduced a full-sized car to the American market by bringing over the Canadian-built Pontiac Parisienne. The Bonneville was then again one notch below the top of the line from late 1983 through 1986. 1987 Euro 1991, for 1987, the G-body Bonneville was dropped and replaced by a new FWD car that was in fact the Pontiac version of the one-year-old H-body platform with the Buick LeSabre and Oldsmobile 88. Initially, a 150 HP 3.8 LV6 was the sole engine, mated to a 4-speed Hydra-Matic 4060 automatic. The new Bonneville was placed on Car and Driver's Euro A10 Best a Euro list for 1987, offering both a base model and LE model. For LE models, an SE Sport package was also available that featured a quicker gear ratio, sportier suspension and more standard features, as the Bonneville was intended to have a more sporty, European flavor than the LeSabre and 88. 1988, a host of trim level changes and a new engine became standard for the front-wheel drive Bonneville's second year. First, a revised version of the LG3 was introduced. Renamed the LN3, it was the first use of the 3800 name. Featuring sequential port fuel injection, the LN3 produced 165 HP and 210 lb-ft. Also new for 1988, the base model is dropped, making LE the base model. Two new models are added, the mid-level SE and line topper SSE. The latter features an extra deep rear valance, lower body cladding, a digital compass trip computer, an 8-speaker premium sound system and much more. 1989 Euro 1991, for 1989. A compact disc player became optional and in 1990 a remote keyless entry system was added to the options list for all models. A facelift was made for the Bonneville in the 1990 model year by changing the grille and headlights. Suspension changes greeted the 1991 model year. 1992 Euro 1999, in 1992, the interior and exterior of the car were completely redesigned. This generation hosted quite a few Bonneville firsts, becoming quicker and considerably safer. One of the most notable improvements over the previous generation was that the Bonneville SE now came standard with a driver airbag, while ABS was available as part of the Sport Appearance package. The SSE models came with standard ABS and traction control. The trims were redone once again, the LE trim was removed, the SE was now the base model, the SSE was now the mid-grade and a new top-of-the-line trim was now added, the SI. It should be noted, according to GM's Pontiac division, these trim acronyms have no implied meaning. The new NA3800 Series I engine was used, producing 170 HP and 225 lb-ft, as well as the newly designed force-inducted Series I3800 equipped with an Eaton M62 Roots-type supercharger which made 205 HP and 260 lb-ft. The newly revised NAL27, for the 1992 model year only, was not equipped with an EGR valve, and can be distinguished by its white intake manifold, as opposed to black from 1993 and on. Abridged safety option list. For 1993, the Sport Luxury Edition was offered. This is basically an SE sub-trim with more standard options such as leather seats, electronic climate control, automatic headlights, premium sound, and crosslace alloy wheels, though certain items such as electronic climate control and premium sound could be deleted from an SLE-equipped car. This option package designation remained only on the RPO sticker until 1998. When SLE badges were added to the exterior of the vehicle. This continued onto the '99 model year. Many more standard options were available with the SSE. The SI came standard with most of the available options in the lower models, including the supercharged 3800. In 1994, a new Generation 3 Eaton M62 supercharger came, along with new OBD 1.5 capabilities, raising the horsepower to 225 HP, torque was raised to 275 lb-F-A-F-T. Also, this year introduced the new 5-spoke torque star wheels. A resonator also became standard on the exhaust to lower the raspy tone that the engine produces. Passenger airbags also became standard on all models this year. In 1995, the car stayed the same appearance-wise, but the SE and SSE trims received a new naturally aspirated engine, the Series 2. This engine made 205 HP and 230 lb-F-A-F-T. The SI remained equipped with the Series ISC 3800 engine until the 1996 model year, when it too was updated. In March 2008, GM announced that these engines and other GM engines supplied with Deck-School antifreeze coolant might be prone to intake manifold failure and other problems with the cooling system if proper regular maintenance is not correctly performed. After settlement of a class action lawsuit, GM agreed to compensate owners of many vehicles that suffered damage, regardless of negligence on the part of the consumer, if the consumer can prove damages. 1996 Euro 1999, in 1996, the exterior of the vehicle had undergone design changes. Some things were subtly reshaped, and other things, such as the tail lights, headlights, grille, and lower body cladding were drastically changed. The gap narrowed quite a bit regarding the exterior trim between packages. The previous generation showed an entirely different style of cladding and rear lighting for the SSE and SI, while this generation, at first glance, remains the same between the trims, with of course, the exception of the unique front bumper and grille. Also for 1996, the supercharged version of the 3800 Series 2 engine was introduced for the Bonneville. The SI and optionally the SSE got a new Eaton M90 supercharged L67, producing 240 HP and 280 lb-F-A-F-T. This engine was used from 1996 until it was retired from the Bonneville in 2003. This was the last generation of the Bonneville to be sold in Australia. A new transmission, the 4T65E, was introduced in 1998 for the naturally aspirated 3800 installed in SE and SSE models, and the heavy-duty version, otherwise known as the 4T65E HD, was introduced in 1997 for the supercharged 3800 installed in the SI models. Engine availability: 170 HP L27, SE, SLE, SSE, 205 HP L36, SE, SLE, SSE, 205 HP L67, SSE optional, SI, 225 HP L67, SLE optional, SI, 240 HP L67, SLE optional, SSE optional, SI. 2000 Euro 2005. The 2000 Bonneville was redesigned from the ground up with significant advancements in design, engineering and technology which Pontiac dubbed luxury with attitude. The Bonneville was now built on GM's G platform. However, GM chose to continue to refer to it as the H platform. Staying true to Pontiac's wide track heritage, it had the widest overall track in its competitive class at 62.6 inches up front and 62.1 inches in the rear. GM's StabiliTrak stability control system was introduced on the top-of-the-line supercharged SI model. The Bonneville regained a V8 option on the GXP trim for 2004, its first since 1986, as a result of the discontinuation of the Oldsmobile Aurora. This opened up a hole in the GM lineup between Pontiac and Buick, allowing Pontiac to expand upmarket somewhat. The engine is Cadillac's 4.6L Northstar V8, producing 275 HP, 300 lb-F-A-F-T and giving 0 to Euro 60 mph in 6.5 seconds. NHTSA crash tests for the 2005 Pontiac Bonneville resulted in a safety rating of 4 stars for the driver and 5 stars for the front passenger. For the last year of production, Pontiac gave the mid-level SLE the new GXP styling. The 2005 SLE featured all GXP styling cues, except the wheels, badging, muffler tips and engine all remained unique to the GXP. Discontinuation: GM announced on February 8, 2005, that the Bonneville would be dropped from Pontiac's lineup for 2006. The last Bonneville left the assembly line on May 27, 2005. Only about 12,000 Bonnevilles were sold in 2005. With more than half of Pontiac dealers also selling Buick models, the Buick Lucerne continued as GM's only mainstream full-size cars until the introduction of the 2008 G8. Notes